Hey, welcome back to Chicken Fried Growth, which is where go-to-market, AI, and the Deep South collide. I'm David York. I'm your host, and I'm here with my co-host, Sara Moseley.
Hey, y'all.
Oh, I like that. Thank you for bringing the y'all into that so early on. So today we are going to talk about two very important topics. First and foremost, we're going to talk about my Aunt Ruby's mac and cheese recipe. It is life-changing in good and probably bad ways. And then our second topic, which may be more relevant to you, is going to be really diving into what I think the number one challenge facing enterprise marketers as it relates to AI. And this is something that's really based off of some findings that I pulled out of the Martech for 2026 report that was released at the end of last year. Sara, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. So yeah, let's get after it. And first and foremost, we have to talk about my Aunt Ruby's mac and cheese recipe. So there is a long history of multi-generational recipe hand-me-downs in the Deep South, and cooking and food in general is so ingrained in our lifestyle, right? It is ingrained in the lifestyle and the people of the Deep South.
Yeah.
And so my family, as your family probably does, has books of recipes that they pass down and that they make. We have one that is a church recipe, and I know they do this up north as well. But to me, there's a special something extra to it in the South, and maybe it's just
lard.
It's the lard that makes it special. That's fair. But my Aunt Ruby's mac and cheese is literally, and Aunt Ruby, God rest her soul.
Yes.
My Aunt Ruby's mac and cheese is probably, in my opinion, the very best mac and cheese that I've ever tasted. Now, I have taken this mac and cheese two places. My kids have taken this mac and cheese two places and have been told by other people in other parts of the Deep South that it is the best mac and cheese. So
huge,
right?
Oh,
you get third-party validation.
Whew. Yes. Oh my goodness.
So I will say, now here's what I will preface this with saying. It is an amazing recipe. We'll talk a little bit about some of the ingredients in the recipe, but this is not a recipe you can eat on a regular basis.
And
we only make
goal.
We only make Aunt Ruby's mac and cheese on special occasions. And it is because the artery-clogging power that I believe lives within this recipe and the ingredients of this recipe, because I think there are probably a number of ingredients that are things that you can't pronounce, and therefore people today's day and age, especially as things are significantly more organic in nature and we're trying to eat less processed foods and those types of things, this recipe does not fall under that category.
That's right.
So it only comes out for special occasions. It only gets added to the menu on Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas, maybe another holiday here or there.
All right, Mom.
Yeah, but that's 4th of July, maybe. Yeah, but that's it. That's the only times it is something you should only eat once a quarter. You know what I mean? Like
recover.
Not even once a month. It's like it's like a quarterly thing. You shouldn't have it monthly. You should have it quarterly. It's that type of food.
But you should have it because you got to live a little.
Yeah, and exactly, and maybe that's what makes it better too, because you kind of, it's using the premise of scarcity. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. It's one of those types of things.
Or stronger in this case.
Yes, absence makes the heart less clogged. Arteries less clogged. For sure. So Aunt Ruby's mac and cheese is basically made up of about 5 ingredients. Maybe there's a sixth one in there, but mainly 5. Yeah, I think there's a sixth. There's like an optional 6. Yeah. It is like any good Southern recipe where you're like, you can kind of add 1 or 2 things of this could go in, this may not go in. It's also one of those things where my version of that recipe or my mother's version of that recipe might be different than my grandmother's version of it. It morphs, it adapts, right? It's not like a baking recipe.
That's right. My mom used to like to sneak mayonnaise into everything. My siblings hated mayonnaise. I loved it, so it didn't bother me. But oh my gosh, that was the source of a lot of meltdowns back in the day.
So I will say, I can safely say that there is not mayonnaise in this baby's recipe. Just for the record, there is no no mayonnaise in that. Thank God.
Yeah.
But somebody probably has put it in there at some point.
Somebody in Alabama probably would.
That is a fair statement. That is fair. So we start with large elbow macaroni. Pretty standard stuff. The large elbows are important though, and I'll tell you why. The large elbows, because you need the large ones so that all the cheese can flow freely through the macaroni. That is an important part of the recipe because it lends itself to having just the ultimate cheesiness. Those little macaronis, you just can't get the right flow of cheesy goodness in those little crevices and those little areas.
Right.
So you got to start with the large macaroni. The second ingredient and the main ingredient is Cheese Whiz.
I love that so much. God bless you, everywhere we are.
So that's why you have to eat this quarterly.
Yeah.
So you go and buy the largest thing of Cheese Whiz you can find.
Walmart.
Yeah. You heat that thing up in the microwave and then you mix it with a can of evaporated milk. Not real milk, of course, but evaporated milk, which again is a form of milk that I know not what its origins are.
Right.
Fun facts, you don't want to confuse evaporated milk with condensed milk. And I'll tell you why. My oldest son made this recipe for Friendsgiving one year. And he made the mistake of buying sweetened condensed milk instead of evaporated milk.
No.
And so he kind of created this kind of mutant mac and cheese dessert type of thing. Now, here's what I will say. In its mutated state, he reported back, and I will take his word for it, that the mac and cheese was completely eaten by everybody at Friendsgiving.
Wow. What did it taste like, though, I wonder? Was it a little bit salty, a little bit sweet, sort of like chocolate dip pretzels?
Yeah, it must have been. The salt content of the Cheese Whiz is probably like 1,000 milligrams, per serving or something. So he said it definitely had a sweet aroma to it, flavor. Like,
well, heck yeah, I did.
The palate was a little sweeter as you ate it, but I don't think it was. Obviously, it wasn't sweet enough to completely make it unedible because, like you said, everybody still ate it because it was still very cheesy and very creamy. It just had a little sweetness to it.
You know what I bet it did? When he baked it, I bet it caramelized that cheese. Because do you remember O'Charlie's restaurant?
Oh, yes. I've not been to one in a long time.
Okay, their famous dessert was the caramel pie, and everybody used to be like, how do they make it? It was just sweetened condensed milk. That was its only ingredient. And if you boil it in the can, open it up, it's just straight caramel. It's like it makes a caramel pudding. So I bet
that's fantastic.
Yeah. So now everybody can try sweetened condensed milk in their mac and cheese and see what happens.
Well, I wouldn't recommend it because it's still not going to turn out the way that you expected it to. But,
right.
But again, so you take the Cheese Whiz, the biggest Cheese Whiz that the store sells, you heat that thing up in the microwave, you mix it with evaporated milk, not condensed. And then what you do is, so you make that into like a sauce, right? It becomes kind of a sauce because the milk kind of thins out the cheese whiz, makes it a creamy cheese. Then you take basically half of your large elbows that are already cooked. You lay that in your pan. Then you take Kraft singles.
Oh, wow. Now,
Not the real cheese, the kind that is wedged between the tiny thin pieces of like cellophane paper.
because it's so special.
Yes. I think they actually call it like cheese food if you read the label. I don't think it actually says that. They have another. Cheese is just an adjective to describe what it actually is.
Right.
And so you put that in and you layer the cheese food, the Kraft singles, across the middle of your macaroni.
Oh, you're doubling.
Then you take another layer of macaroni on top of that. So you have the cheese kind of like the cheese food in air quotes, like, or maybe the cheese should be in air quotes.
Right.
The cheese should be in air quotes. Cheese in air quotes. The slices of quote unquote cheese in the middle. Then you take and you put it over the top. Then you just pour that entire mixture of cheese whiz and evaporated milk over the top of that thing.
Yum.
And then you take real cheese. And then you can throw some pats of butter on there. This is kind of the optional stuff. Like, just take a stick of butter, cut it up, like a whole stick, right? Just cut it up into little slices, little pats, and just put a whole row of that. Then on top of that, you throw the real cheese on the top of it. So there is some real cheese, but it's probably like 20% of the mac and cheese includes actual cheese.
It's how you lure people into the dark side. They see the real cheese and they go in.
Yeah, exactly. And again, why this is a quarterly occurrence, because
Oh my God.
there's stuff in this thing that you just shouldn't consume in your body, I'm sure, on a regular basis.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So what you end up with, and you bake it like on a low temperature for a long, just get that cheese whiz milk mixture just like bubbling and boiling.
Yeah.
All right. And then get that top layer of cheese a little harder. So you'd end up with this very creamy, salty concoction, and just the cheese is just, it's all kind of just
Sounds delicious.
built together into it's an amazing thing, right? It really is. It's something that it's not reproducible, in any other like way other than, right? Like, it just has that very rich restaurant style mac and cheese, right? Very rich and creamy.
Do y'all put a crumble top on it? Do you do some
No.
crackers and
No. Just cheese. Just cheese.
You're like,
and other
food.
Just cheese in its various forms.
Yeah.
In its various iterations.
So Aunt Ruby was a purist.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I always think back, I'm like, is this something that because it is so much non-perishable stuff.
Right.
It's like, is this something that was made because of the Great Depression? But my instinct tells me that Cheese Whiz may not have been around that far back.
And I wonder when Cheese Whiz did come out.
That's a great question. I probably should have done the research on that for this episode, but I did not. But feel free to Google that
Right.
if you need to say, like, when was Cheese Whiz formed? It very may well have been formed in a certain state back then, and maybe Cheese Whiz is a secondary iteration. Maybe it started with just like some can of cheese sauce that was like Depression era.
Yeah, it came about in 1952. So those were kids that were raised by parents from the Depression era.
Yeah, that's probably true. So, okay, so when we think about cooking and the like, one of the things that we always know to be true, and you know this to be true as someone who cooks and bakes, I love baking. I posted recently about how I do a lot of the baking in the holidays around my house. Is you have the right tools if you're baking, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have the right tools, stuff's going to get weird.
Yes. Yeah, you have to have, like I always say when I'll make everybody's birthday cake in my family, and it depends on if they want something dense or if they want something fluffy. But if you want like a fluffy cake, you want your whisk attachment, on your little mixer, because it stirs basically air into it. However, you also want to be smart about how much time you let it whip air into it, because after a while it will turn it into a much denser cake, as it'll just get it to, it's almost like turning whipped cream into butter is what
Right.
it'll get thicker. So yeah, there's a little bit of food science to all that, but yes, got to have the right tools.
So let's talk about tools as it relates to marketing and AI. As I mentioned, I took a stroll through the Martech for 2026 reports when that came out at the end of 2025, and there was some interesting facts and things that stood out to me in that. My dog's chewing on her nails. Hey,
What? Hey, Daisy, Daisy, stop.
Can you, Barney, out of curiosity?
no.
Okay, good. All right.
So now I can't, but that's okay. Well, it mutes you whenever I talk, so it will be very small and short. So one of the things I found when I went through that Martech for 2026 report is some really interesting data and reporting. Specifically, I looked at the data and reporting around AI adoption that was broken out from SMB to enterprise.
Okay.
And here's what I saw and I found was really interesting. So when you look at the SMBs and the enterprises and the challenges that they faced with AI adoption and agentic adoption,
Right.
and I wrote about this on my Substack, so AI-poweredgrowth.substack.com, you'll see this there's an article about this. But when they surveyed people about their implementation challenges broken out by SMB and enterprise, the number one area with the largest gap. So in other words, the area where SMBs are performing better, significantly better, the area that has the largest gap between performance of SMBs and enterprises was integration friction.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There's a 27% gap between those two, between enterprises. So enterprises note that they have 68% of people in enterprises noted that integration friction, and it actually scores the highest of their implementation challenges.
Golly.
Conversely, SMBs reported only 41% of SMBs reported integration friction.
Wow.
So that is the one challenge that had the widest margin between the two types of companies.
Right.
So that's the first point. The second part of this is a set of charts that basically spell out the root causes of that gap. And it's actually kind of sitting there, but they're separate charts. And so when I started looking at them together, that's where I uncovered this data. So there's basically four areas that showcase the root cause here. The first one is where, or the location that AI agents are being adopted.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is, and again, there's charts around this. Enterprises are more likely to use platform solutions, platform embedded solutions, or commercial solutions. Things that they went out and bought some company and said, hey, we have this AI agent, buy this AI agent from us. Or they're using stuff that's already embedded into their tools like Microsoft Copilot or Salesforce Einstein and things like that.
Right.
Enterprises, well, SMBs are more likely to use low code and no code tools, workflow automation type of tools, to deploy their AI agents. Enterprises are much less likely to use that. So there's this delta between SMBs and enterprises on where agents are being used by these types of companies.
Okay.
The second root cause has to do with the types of use cases that they're going after. And there's a difference here as well. So enterprises are significantly more likely to use AI agents to work on existing use cases and less likely to use them for entirely new use cases, where SMBs have kind of the opposite. They're more likely to use AI agents to do something new that they haven't been doing, to find something innovative and new, like, hey, we're using this, and kind of makes sense to some degree because SMBs are trying to do more with less. So they're going, hey, can we leverage this new technology to go places we couldn't previously go and do things we couldn't previously do, where an enterprise is like, well, we can do everything because we're an enterprise and we have all these people. But what you end up with is, so you end up with enterprises just, again, working on existing stuff.
During
And the last two things, I'll roll through this quickly.
Yeah.
The third one is integration methods. So they're more likely to use, enterprises are more likely to use custom built code or third parties, and less likely to use a workflow automation platform or a no-code platform, where SMBs are more likely to. And then the last one is really where MCP use. So MCP, if you're familiar with it, Model Context Protocol, that is the kind of standardized way that AI agents can talk to other tools, other technologies that Anthropic came up with. So enterprises are more likely to use MCP servers that come from their core platforms, one of their core platforms like Salesforce or whatever, other tools, or something, or a Gen AI platform like OpenAI or Anthropic or something like that.
Right.
Where SMBs are often using these integration automation platforms. So I'll boil this down. This is where you get to this. So what you see is that this integration friction challenge and these kind of root causes are all interconnected to where what enterprises lack is a tool in their stack, just like you need that whisk attachment to make the fluffy cake. What this spells out is they lack a tool in their stack to actually help them adopt AI and remove that friction when it comes to AI adoption. And SMBs are using tools, these low code, no code, workflow automation type of tools, to successfully overcome that friction in these early days.
Do you think some of that is fear-based? Like at some of the enterprises, we've always done it this way. We're just going to use this to tackle the same problems instead of really getting experimental with it and just exploring what it can do?
I think there's a little bit of that, but I think it's more about two things. One is, if you work in an enterprise, you know that it's harder to get new technology in the door.
That's right. Oof.
Right?
Yeah.
You've got layers of maybe politics and bureaucracy and red tape and things like that.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why it's SMBs have a much easier time adapting and adopting these technologies. And so they can look and say, oh, this stuff can solve this problem and enable us to do this agentic AI stuff. And so they're going to jump on that more quickly because they're just more nimble and there's less red tape. I think the second thing is that most of the platforms that fall into the no code, low code category, there's significantly more platforms that are targeted and marketed and ready for use within small and medium-sized businesses.
Okay.
Less of those platforms, I would say, are quote unquote enterprise ready platforms.
Okay.
Not that they can't be used by enterprises, but they lack some of the governance features and capabilities, and they are probably not really going to market towards enterprises as well, right? Some of it's just the perception in some cases.
Right.
So I think those two things is like, it's harder to get new tech in the door. And number two is these tools. And if you list, and I'll list some of the names. So like Zapier is one of the tools. N8N is one that people are using a lot. Make.com is another one. Tray. So there's a bunch of these tools, and they sit more often than not in the SMB space. Their customer base is more SMB and so forth. Where you have tools like Workato, which I would consider more of an enterprise level automation and integration platform that would fall into that category. And it's mentioned in the report alongside these other tools, but it falls definitely more into a higher end enterprise level category.
Okay.
So what you get is this, and there's one other reason too, I would say. Workato in particular usually sits in IT from a technology standpoint.
Yeah.
So some of these marketers may actually have that and the ability to use it to help them implement AI, but it sits in the IT world. And if you've been in marketing, go to marketing and sales in general, there is not always a lot of collaboration openly happening between those different departments and IT.
So
Sometimes there's friction.
yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of silos and usually some weird political stuff going on where you're like, oh my gosh, we're all on the same team. Come on, everybody.
Exactly. So what you get, and I thought this was fascinating in this report, is it kind of showcases like, hey, here's a tool, here's a type of tool. And we don't talk about, right, there is a lot of talk about people kind of shrinking their marketing tech stacks and trying to get them under control.
Right.
A lot of them have kind of grown out of control and gotten oversized through the years. So there's definitely been, I think, a conscious effort for teams to get control of those tech stacks and to reduce them. But this is one of those instances where I would venture to say you need to figure out a way to get a tool like this into your stack.
Okay. And start experimenting.
Yeah, because I think that the tools like this, and again, the data kind of tells the story.
Sure.
I love it when the data tells the story because it removes that, opinions out of the equation.
Right.
It's not subjective, right? It's objective truth. Like the data is telling the story.
Right.
So what I would say, here's my charge, and I know I'm dominating this conversation, but there's just this is an area that I'm very passionate about. I would say if this is you, if you're in one of these organizations, you've got to figure out a way to do that. So you've either got to, an enterprise SMBs, go look at some of the tools that are out there that fall into that category that I mentioned that you probably want to figure out how you can adopt. If you're an enterprise organization, you should definitely go talk to IT and figure out if you have one of these types of tools available for you to use already, right? You don't need to go down the road of having to get something if it's already there.
Yes.
If you don't have it, you don't have it. Obviously, it wouldn't probably hurt to reach out to one of those companies and have the conversation in particular. And then the third option is, and this is one that I've used successfully with customers, is as an agency, is to say, hey, does my agency have one of these tools or have these tools that they utilize as part of their services and solutions that they deliver? So you have an agency most likely that you're working with. Could you get access to or commandeer, so to speak, one of these types of systems through that agency and give yourself the ability to enable yourself? And again, I think this is an area where when we start talking about success with AI and adoption, a lot of it has to do with business alignment and people alignment and so on and so forth. But even once you get those things aligned, the rubber's going to meet the road at some point, and you're going to make sure that you have the right tools to be able to do that. And this is an area that I think kind of stands out to me as one of those areas.
Cool thing about going with the agency approach too is that they've already been using it, so they've already got some use cases maybe you haven't thought of. They've got some ideas of ways you can experiment with it and get some better results than what you've been getting.
Yeah, that's a good point, because a lot of what agencies do, and again, I'm in that world, so I could say this is repeat and reuse, right? If something works with a customer, you're going to find a way to make that usable with other customers
Yes.
as much as possible, and it's valuable to the customers at the end of the day, because you're going to get that, that wisdom and that knowledge baked into your engagement with those folks at that agency. So for sure.
Yeah. Good stuff.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Catch us next time.
Yeah.
We are talking about AI, and we're talking about some mac and cheese, and we're talking about all things deep south.